Do we have to turn the power buttons on?
Okay,
You should be
get
ready.
started. This is a little different. We have a joint meeting tonight with the Policies and Procedures Committee. So we'll kind of do the policies and procedures. We'll do a legislative and then policies and procedures and kind of go back and forth a little bit here. First off, find my schedule here. Here we go. So we'll open the meeting formally. It is 5:30. I ask that members of the Legislative Committee to sign the legislative roll call. And I guess plans and policies, you've got one circulating too. Okay, the agenda, we do have one new item, but I think we can cover that under new business. And the review of approval items from policies and procedures, I didn't list them, but there's two items, and we'll cover them. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda for legislative?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, do you need to do the same with yours?
I believe so.
Okay, go ahead.
So we'll go ahead and take a roll call. Well, we took the roll call, we passed the sheet around. We could go ahead and have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
And then, any public comments from,
Okay. Any public comments?
I would propose to have public comments after the meeting, so we know what to talk about that's been talked about here.
but just before we get started, there's no.
Which committee? All of them. Because how do we know what to comment about?
Good luck with that.
If we
Okay.
don't, if we haven't
Sure,
heard you yet.
well, we didn't know if you have attended any.
I know,
of the
I'm just
previous meetings.
proposing
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
you know.
We'll have to look at that because I think it came down from the legislature that we're supposed to have that up front.
Okay.
But I understand, and we can certainly entertain if you have anything to say afterwards.
Open that up afterwards. If we could we go ahead and, for policy and procedures, approve or modify the previous minutes from our last meeting? Can we get a motion for that?
I'll make a motion on that.
I'll second it.
Turn it back over to you.
Okay. Okay, we have two items from the Policies and Procedures Committee. And let me get them here. Hang on to one and we'll just circulate that around.
Wait.
Should be all the same, it's one page.
Is this what we're looking at?
Oh, yeah, that's correct.
So I should turn that off. Yes. Okay, basically this is to add Juneteenth back to the county paid holiday list. It is now a state holiday. The Policies and Procedures recommends that it be a county paid holiday. We took that this year. Lynn, I don't know what.
We
how that
passed it
im-
in budget finance.
Okay, I don't know how
last
that
week.
impacts, did we budget for it this year?
Well, not originally, but it's not a significant, we approved it Thursday night.
Okay.
I don't know what the total impact, if we
I imagine
had a
it's gonna
number
be
or not.
50, 60,000.
Probably, but,
Yeah,
so.
okay. So, any discussion on this? And this is the legislative committee now. Any discussion?
This is being forwarded from the state. We're not really have a choice with this.
The
correct?
state declared it a state holiday. Typically, the counties follow the state. But I think there's probably a little bit of choice that we could not follow that, but I don't think,
Well,
Yeah.
like I said, my freshman commission,
Yeah.
that we're the extinction of the state.
Correct.
government locally.
That's correct.
So,
So I think we're kind of at a point where it probably should be approved. Any discussion? Well, first off, I guess we need a motion to consider this.
Yeah, also, I'll move to approve it.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any discussion?
You just took the vote. You just took the vote.
Too late.
But, no, I don't have any discussion.
Okay, all in favor of this action?
Aye.
Okay, so that's
You
approved.
guys already did that, right, so.
Yeah. Okay, the next item is probably gonna take a little bit more discussion. Let's see. And I did not staple these together, so there's 2 pages. If you'll take 2 off each, I'm sorry, I didn't get them stapled together.
I'll just make sure I had two, looks like I do.
And this is the primary reason for having a joint meeting, so that if we have any discussion or changes, policies and procedures can approve it, so we can take it to the county commission. And what we're looking at now is a personnel evaluation system. Which I think some of you in legislative have seen before.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was in.
It's been changed a little bit since the original one. One of the things that came up was the mayor's office was concerned that managers wouldn't know how to do this out of the cold because there's never been an evaluation system in the county. So we built in a training, a 6 to 8 period to train all managers.
And Claude, we're supposed to be the ones that help train him too, correct?
Correct.
I was gonna ask,
We are.
who's responsible for the training program?
Tim and I are gonna sit there and do training classes,
Okay.
and then we're gonna make them
Evaluate us.
evaluate Tim and me. And Joe Mike.
I think if they do, and once you read the expectations that Claude came up with, to me, they're short, sweet, and precise. You should be able to accomplish each one of these, and giving them, if they evaluate 3 of us, and even if they need help with somebody, they could have the mayor's office or call one of us. I'll be willing to sit in and help somebody, just, as a neutral subject, but give them a little bit of comfort there. But these need to be done with people to where they are meeting our expectations or their expectations. And those that are over a board meeting the expectations, they should know that they're gonna get rewarded for that. I mean, there's places in here that, if you're exceeding standards, you're doing an exceptional job, and you should be proud of what you do, and we should be proud of them. And if you're not, then we need to pull you up by your bootstraps and get you going and make you a good employee. So,
And what this does, if you meet the standard, if you're just coming to work, doing your job, you check that box. You don't have to explain it, you don't have to defend it. If they're exceeding standard, you have to justify why they're exceeding standards. And there's 3 there, and each office could add up to 2 or 3 that are relevant to their office. I've already talked to a couple of elected officials, they like it, they plan to use it. If you're not meeting standard, that's where it gets a little tougher. A manager, director, supervisor will have to sit down and counsel that person and have a written record of the counseling and have at least a couple of those to justify that they're not meeting the standard. And the other thing is, the supervisors are all expected to sit down with each employee and go over this form at the start of the rating period so that they understand what they're being rated on. And this is very simple. It may evolve and get a little bit more, to it over the years, but we need to start somewhere, and this gives us a start. So if we pass it in September, it would go in, we do the training and go into effect in mid-November. The one thing I didn't put in here is a time period. I'd recommend we do the first one for 6 months, and that's where the two committees tonight could agree if we decide to make that change.
All right, so I have several questions and comments. And I'm for it, by the way, but I do wanna make sure we're careful about how we do it. So, says it's gonna happen, and we're gonna document all this. Who's gonna be responsible for making sure it gets done and keeping track of the records? Is that gonna be the mayor's office?
The mayor's office would have to approve any ratings by people that work for his office. In other words, I'll just pick one, building maintenance.
So my only point is, in the document, we don't explicitly say who's responsible for making sure this actually
Like, who does
happens.
the department heads turn this into, and?
I mean, we've
and
said-
Is there a timeframe
yeah.
of when they're supposed to turn it into?
Yeah, we've said that, you know, it's voluntary
Yep.
for the elected officials. I assume this means the mayor has to make sure it happens in his department, because
That's
that's what
correct.
we're saying. So just as long as that gets sorted out, but we may end up coming back and having to correct some stuff like that. Same way with the training program a little bit. The, over here on the second page, you've got areas that would be rated by every office organization are, and that's, I agree with all three of those. Are they allowed to add any others for their
Yes,
office? Do we
yes.
say that in here?
Yes.
Where?
Each major supervisor would develop 3 other specific.
Okay, I'm
areas
sorry, I
for
missed that,
evaluation.
I missed that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, this next part, it says any counseling for bad behavior, is this only during the evaluation process?
I would say, really, that should happen whenever.
I agree with
Yeah,
that, but I don't think this
Well-
says that.
Yeah, well,
That may be a separate
Maybe it
policy to
should say
write.
that, but not limited to, you know,
Well, we're saying we
No,
wanna,
let's not-
to me, dealing with a discipline issue is separate than
Yes.
an evaluation process.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you've had an issue, you need to deal with an evaluation
Yeah.
process. I'm not saying take that out. I'm asking, if we're trying to get to the point where we have documentation of bad behavior so the lawyers can protect us, then it needs to be happening at times other than
Every
just
time it
this.
happens.
Not
It has
just,
to be
yeah,
documented.
it needs to be documented at all times.
Yes, it has to be documented.
Are we doing that now? I think I know the answer to that.
There's a form.
I hope so.
yeah.
That's my worry.
yeah,
Because-
As
because in the-
best I can tell, yes.
Yeah, when I joined this board, I spent 2 hours in a meeting with a very nasty lawyer because that did not happen.
yeah, we've,
Well, there
As
is,
best I
there
can
is a
tell from
process
what-
set up in the manual for it, that,
As best I can tell
Steps.
from what I've seen thus far, since September, yes. And phenomenal jobs, by the way, by the department.
That's great. The ones that are doing it, that's great. It's hard to know if it's happening in all occasions, but the only reason I'm bringing this up so much is because we've actually spent a good bit of time talking about this in strategic planning committee meetings, and we've talked about whether to bring in an HR official that would help make sure that sort of thing happens. That's probably gonna be one of our recommendations, and it's not intended to say anything about the people who are already doing all our HR work. It's just a matter of us saying, we see that there's a gap in that particular problem.
I know, but I'm sitting around 2 of them right now, and I
Yeah.
can guarantee you these two.
I have no doubt
I
of that.
can guarantee that be the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah, I have no doubt of that. What about another person in the future that may or may not take their jobs in the future?
I
I,
can't.
that's our, and so I'm not trying to solve that problem here. I just want to point out, expect to hear more about that
Yeah.
when we start talking about strategic
yeah,
plan.
and I'm sure we're gonna be tweaking this, but this is to get something started that we can put in
No,
place.
I think it's pretty good.
So are there any changes the legislative committee sees to make to this? The only thing I would suggest that I didn't put in here is we do the initial period for 6 months.
So you might want to specify when in time, what time is this happening? Are we really going to evaluate people 3 weeks before Christmas?
No, 6 months.
But you said we would start in November, I think.
Oh, we'll start,
Yeah.
start the 6-month period in November.
And then the evaluation would be in the spring.
Yes.
So, okay, I'm cool with that, but I was like, we do not want to roll out an evaluation straight out of the gate in November,
No.
okay.
No, you need to have several months to do this, because if you're not gonna, in less than a month, decide somebody's outstanding, in
Right.
that period, you're evaluating.
Is the
Wow.
intent
Or they're
here,
not.
is the intent here then to do this every 6 months or to do it, annually?
I would say we start with 6 months, because we're starting good bit into the fiscal year, and after that, go annually.
Well, that would be annually, starting first evaluation date you just specified.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it ought to be in the
Wouldn't you
document.
need to truncate this because you're gonna, the way everybody's talking, I'm assuming you're basing your people's raises and or pay off of this evaluation?
Possibly.
Possibly.
I didn't agree to that.
Well, that starts in February and you turn it in March. If you look at the 6 months, November, December, January, February, March, April, you're past that. So wouldn't you wanna truncate the first initial rollout to be in line with that, to where you could
I
get them
don't,
done?
I don't see that we're truncating anything. These people are
Well,
working
you
for
just
you
said
now.
6 months, so the
Well,
6 months would be
yeah,
April.
But it's not like these people aren't already working for you,
No, sure.
right? So why not just set the date that's convenient to work it into the,
Frank, are you
Yeah,
comfortable
I like what you're saying.
evaluating all these folks?
Well, sure.
I mean, y'all
I mean, we're already
employ, Jenny.
kinda halfway doing it, but we document the
mean,
stuff.
As
I
far
mean-
as being something not, like reprimanding somebody, I mean, I've got employee files on
Yeah.
everybody and it got all documentation on that
Yeah.
and started that right off the bat, but
how long is it gonna take y'all to do this process? You gonna
That's
split it
the
up?
question I was
Oh, no, it would be up to the immediate supervisor of those people
Yes.
to
So
do
you got
it.
enough to
Yeah.
do, so you don't
Yes.
have,
And
you're
so-
not gonna have anybody doing up 50 people.
No,
Yeah.
no, most that they would actually be doing is in our jail, typically about 11 to 12 per
That's
shift.
doable.
So, and you've got a sergeant and a corporal on there, so really and truly, they could split them up initially and do 6 people.
That's doable.
so I would have 5
So-
department heads and there's about, 4 to 5 people within each
That'd be a good
department,
training
so.
for people, even though they'll
I
come
mean,
away
you
from
could-
it first.
Okay.
Sure they will.
You could possibly do it within a week and
Yeah,
get it done.
that's what I just wanna make sure we're putting some kind of burden on
So-
the large departments.
Sure.
So do we agree that 6 months from
Well, he's saying
November?
we got a date to start to get, when is,
I'm
it-
just
when is our, let's see, is it it's March? When is your
They
guys'
hand them
stuff
out
due?
in
So
February.
February 20, like the very end of February
Yeah.
is usually when we have to have budget in.
Yeah,
So I mean,
we could
I'm
say
thinking like-
first of February.
yeah,
Have it in by the 1st of February.
so maybe start start the evaluations
Everybody
like
loves
mid-January.
February already.
Just to,
Be just another reason to
just to
like
give you time,
Yep.
start the evaluations mid-January to have them in by, yeah.
So have the first go of this,
have them in by the 1st of February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time.
And
then would you start-
That'd just be your annual
So-
day.
And then
You
do
would have
it
the
be-
evaluations in,
And
basically
then
you
do
would have it
annual.
in the same time as you would have to have your budget in.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause if
Because
you're
Because
gonna
you know
try
if
to
you're
get
gonna
your
get
budget
raises or
process.
not,
Yeah,
you're
yes.
asking for
Yeah.
the increase.
Well,
in that.
you know, those that are gonna be doing, if they're gonna ask for specific raises for individuals, then at least they've got this in and they can then
Well, to be
follow up
honest-
with it to be
Right.
able to
To
say,
be honest, it's
well,
probably a good time to get big feedback
I've
from
asked for
employees.
Claude,
or
Yes, absolutely.
above
Yeah.
and beyond the 4% raise, if the county decides on something of that nature, then if Claude's my employee, I can say, well, he went and met and exceeded our expectations, I would like to give him 2%, and this is why, an extra 2.
Right,
This is
and
why.
you have the documentation right there
So,
to back
yeah.
that up, yeah.
Now, we're talking, this is for just the first time, the rollout.
first time, and I would say then we make it
Just
an
annual.
annual.
Would-
Why would
And
not
would you
just do that
start,
now? Why would you not just do that now? Why would you just not put in the document that
February
employee
the first.
evaluations due by
Annually,
February first?
evaluations will be done annually by February 1st to
Why don't-
coincide with the budget.
why don't you start with July 1st, and you've got that first 6 months of the new year to do that evaluation, and be ready with plenty of time before you turn all this in February?
Well, after this first time, it
Yes.
would be that way, technically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
But
it would
unless you
be
wanna wait
every
a whole other year
February
and a half to
1st.
start this, then,
No, we
Yeah,
don't
it
need to
would
start
be-
away a year and a half.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah,
every
but the-
February
But the
1st.
rollout is like you guys are saying,
Well, you're
but,
rolling it out now.
the rollout would have to happen now for the training part.
but we start the following year, July 1st.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that gives
1st
us a
or
good 6 months and it gives a good time lead.
July 1st or
Yes.
March 1st.
What do
We
you
can do
mean?
our first training session this next month.
Well, you would have to have it turned in.
I think
still
the-
say the February
The
1st.
important day,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
the
mean, March-
important
start,
day,
start the next one in March through the following
But you
February.
could you could start the
You're
evaluation
saying these are annual.
process.
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you suggest, you just specify the date they're
You
due.
just, you specify the date that they're needed to be completed by, and then it'd be annual. You have no technical start date.
Right, it would be up to the department head when they wanted to do the evaluation.
Right, I mean, if
yeah.
they
Yeah,
wanna start in
okay.
December,
Yeah,
I mean, even though it's Christmas, if they wanna start and trickle them through and just have them all turned in by February, that's up to them. But, I mean,
Okay, so let's restate this, that the first go-around of this would be due to be turned in,
Why do you keep saying first go around?
well,
initial
start
rollout,
up.
Why are we
the
saying initial
Start
startup?
up.
the start
initial
of it.
rollout.
Yeah. We can
Start
say,
up.
do it annually, annually on February first, starting in
Yeah.
2024.
There you are.
There you go.
And if we don't like it, we can always change it, you know, it's nothing fixed in stone.
But right.
Okay, so you're proposing that,
Yeah,
second?
Second.
Any discussion, further discussion? All in favor? Okay,
has our council had a chance to read through this?
I'm good.
Okay, that's just to make sure.
okay. I guess we need to toss it back to your committee, because we just made a change,
Yep, and we have to approve that change.
and we need you guys to approve.
Motion.
Second.
All right.
Okay.
That's-
This avoids it
Yes, sir.
spending out
2
another
months.
2 months. Okay, so those pass with that one change. And we'll get that, I guess, set up for the September meeting. And then we have other business here, what our esteemed attorney has brought to us. And let me find the agenda here. And that would be under new business.
For us, yeah.
So would you like to just go, would you like to go through and explain this?
No, I would actually like Mr. Watkins to explain how this came about.
So, we have always had an ambulance authority until, since 1972, when the funeral directors decided they were not going to transport sick individuals anymore. So the state, put it off on the county when the funeral directors came to the counties and said, we're not doing this service anymore. So the county passed a resolution naming ambulance authority to service the county citizens with ambulances. It's not a true authority in that it does not have a charter. It was not done by state.
Didn't go through the legislature.
It didn't go through the legislature on a private act. It was by name only. So in essence, it was a committee. It's always been a committee. So looking at the future, we have talked about this since last year, since the election term happened again back in September, that back and forth about whether or not to go back to a standing committee instead of an authority. Ed has come to those meetings before because there was some, and the mayor, because there was some questions about our risk as far as liability risk of being an authority and acting as such. It's lack of a better word, we were a quasi-authority because we were only by name only. So therefore, we have tossed it, never voted on about going back to a committee for the purpose of the future of when, with the advent of the mega site coming on board, with the growth that is coming in, to have basically a public safety board that would probably encompass all public services except, safety services except for the sheriff's office, since they're under on the law enforcement committee. But your rescue squad, your EMA, your EMS, and your fire would fall under a public safety board and allow that to be managed and grow accordingly without having to have 2 or 3 committees bouncing back and forth and going that route. So last Thursday at our meeting, there was a motion and a second, a 3-0 vote for abolishing the ambulance authority and going back to a standing committee.
Okay. So this would be a new committee we're gonna create.
Yes, it would be a new standing committee that would be done, basically renaming the ambulance authority under a public safety committee.
Okay, and it would be,
That at this time would be just for the for EMS, but later on, it would grow and encompass.
Okay, so right now, just EMS, okay.
Frank, that's what I understand.
So this is still separate from the 911 board, right?
It is. The 911 is a true authority.
Yeah, that's what I thought, so.
It has its own public charter, through legislation and everything. It is basically a utility board.
And I will tell you that the ambulance authority was created by resolution. I've read it ad nauseam, and I've read the minutes from the meeting, so I believe the resolution is appropriate, subject to the board's approval, and of course, the commission.
So we have an existing public safety committee?
Not yet. This is what this does. This resolution would dissolve the ambulance authority and
All right.
make the public safety.
To me, it almost sounded like
committee.
we already had one the way I was reading, but I don't guess that.
I don't read it that way, but yeah.
That's
I
fine.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's why I'm asking you.
Would this committee be
It'd be
made
other-
up of
Commissioners.
commissioners?
Yes.
Okay.
Unlike before, there were two, voting members that were not commissioners on there. This would bring it back to being all, made up of all commissioners.
Okay.
In essence, the biggest part of that job sounds to me like it's gonna be hiring whoever's in charge of the ambulance service. Is that correct?
Well, yes, and, actually that now would fall under the mayor's office.
Okay,
Because
okay,
this
okay.
would now pull, the employees, and that was another reason we talked about going between an authority and there was too much confusion. And I've spoke with Heather at length about this. There was too much confusion about having two employee handbooks
I
to
can
try to
certainly
balance.
understand why. Yeah.
Is, okay, part of this, I get to come to Heather with problems, and then the other part, I have to go before the full board of an authority to raise any gripe or any question or a grievance in front of the public. And some of those are private matters.
Yeah.
And do not need to be aired in public. They need to be in the confines of an HR office
Yeah.
that could be confidential. And some of these things, don't need to be aired out in public as far as the initial complaint before they are investigated and looked at. So that was another reason we had talked about this, is to bring back everything under one umbrella for the employees, because they are county employees, by no other question. They were not employees of the authority, they were employees of the county. So therefore, they should have all the services that each employee is offered, and that one being to be able to talk to Ms. Heather about any HR issues
Yep.
without having to go through a supervisor, because in case it is a supervisor I am complaining about. So I need to be able to have that fair and impartial person that I can talk to, instead of, again, airing it out in a public forum before anything is ever investigated or even looked at.
And if we actually wanted authority, we should actually set up one as an
If
authority.
we wanted an authority like
So
that, we
set
should
one up.
set up one and have it chartered and have it done, kinda like the comm center.
Right.
If that's what the county wants.
Yeah.
But you can't be a quasi and have, part of this is okay, but part of it has to go here, and that's what we've been balancing.
I appreciate all the effort on this. For the legislative committee, any other questions or discussion at this point? Anybody? Okay, someone wanna, propose that we
I'll make
pass
the
that?
motion that we adopt this and send it before the legislative body.
Second, okay.
I think there was one correction, but it's just a clerical error, but I think
Yeah.
that our good county attorney was
Already
marked it.
marked it on,
The nice one will be before the body for
Fourth
vote, for consideration.
Okay,
this, well, I almost called this.
no further discussion. Let's call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. And you're gonna make a clean copy? Do you want me to sign it as chairman and one other member down here for sponsors?
Sure, just give it to Heather, please, just scribble on it and give it to Heather, please.
Okay.
You can have Tim scribble on it.
Who wants to co-sign it? Probably somebody.
How many commissioners, Frank, have y'all decided?
It's 5. It's still the same format for
Yeah,
right
I
now.
don't think it's gonna be anything any different, it's just kind of putting everything in one hand.
Well, and it'll be good for the, as the county grows with
Well, I
rural
really think it's
fire.
bad.
Well, I see that here probably sooner than much later. We're gonna have to start talking about full-time fire, some type of model
Again,
for full-time fire. And with
Or is it
this,
going straight to the
it would give you
completion?
that avenue of adding that to it.
It makes it.
we don't have to sign
It
another.
makes it
one.
easier.
Yeah.
Exactly
We
right.
wanna make it hard on them.
Wait, does he, I
Okay.
don't know who needs this. I'll get the chairman to decide.
Okay, the next meeting of the Legislative Committee is scheduled for October 2nd, 5:30 PM in this room.
Anybody else fall break now? Tell them it's next week, so you're clear.
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to schedule it so it's more than a week before
Yeah,
the October
I
commission.
just wanna make sure.
Yeah, that's right.
You need to go through your,
Yeah, so policy and procedures is, set for Monday, September 18th at 5 PM.
okay. Any other business for either committee? Okay, before we adjourn.
Yeah. I was gonna remind in case.
Thoughts?
Yes, sir.
I would like some clarification on what Juneteenth is. I think I kinda know what it is, could somebody tell me what it is?
I don't think it's our job to tell you, first of all, but secondly, it's a federal holiday celebrating the end of slavery in the last state in the United States of America.
Texas.
Juneteenth was Texas was the last place,
Yeah, I think it was.
and it started in Texas as a holiday before it went national, and then
Okay.
And then it just kinda went through and everybody adopted one.
Anything else? Okay. Well, I move to adjourn the Legislative Committee.
Second.
I'll do the same for policy and procedure.
I'll second it.
Here's your pen.